Undercity Commander. Another one coming at you. Live, but not really. I'm Jacob.
Hunter here. Steven.
And Steven died.
Sorry, I had pushed the wrong button on my phone. Hunter said it was Cabal, and I was like, that's obviously fake news.
Where did you pull it up?
I pulled it up from Oxford. That was at the start of the
The
conversation.
Cambridge Dictionary.
I think it's
This
Cambridge.
is in Britain. Cambridge? It's Cambridge, Hunter.
Cabal.
Cabal.
No. You're fake news.
Oh my god. Are you listening to the UK pronunciation?
No, you're fake news. I'm not listening to fake news. I'm here to talk about tribal stuff.
Greatest segue ever. We're talking about tribal. You guys like tribal. I know Steven has announced it a couple times already. And
Oh, have I?
I think in the last episode you mentioned it.
Yeah, you've mentioned tribal in most episodes. Because we have so many. I think you mentioned it in all of them.
Oh, there we go.
So Steven tribal is one of my favorite types. Just a bunch of squirrels and small animals from the woodlands. That's not a real thing. I just made that up. But I feel like that's what you would do if you were to make a tribal theme. All right, let's talk about stuff. In the vein of tribal themes and what we like to play, slivers are really cool because they were literally made to be tribal. Every sliver has an ability that affects other slivers. I bought one of the pre-con sliver decks a while back, and I think I ended up selling it because it started going way up in price and it was worth a lot, so I was like, whatever. But it was really fun to play while I had it. And two of the big hitters notable in this tribal theme are Sliver Queen and Sliver Overlord, or you could just call it Sliver King, because that's what it seems like. Sliver Queen is one of each color. The sliver decks are usually 5 colors because there's different slivers of different colors that do color-specific type effects.
Also, I want to say the legends are all 5 colors, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So Sliver Queen, one of each. Legendary creature, Sliver. She's a 7/7, and you can pay 2 to put a 1/1 colorless Sliver token onto the battlefield. So that just kind of gives you a token generator, get some slivers out there, and then the other slivers that you have in your deck will help pump those. Sliver Overlord is very similar. It's also a 7/7 for 1 for each mana. Legendary creature Sliver, but it's a Sliver mutant. It has like 3 heads. You can tap 3 to search your library for a sliver card, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle your library, and you can also tap 3 to gain control of target sliver. So if you're going up against another sliver deck, or someone just happens to have one out on the field, you can take it. Pretty interesting cards. They kind of enable a sliver deck build. Some other smaller slivers that help boost the ones you have out. Here's another legendary, Sliver Legion. He's also a 7/7 for 1 of each, and all slivers get +1/+1 for each other sliver in play. So that's like Coat of Arms, I think. Gives you +1/+1 for each other creature type that shares a creature type. So this could be really powerful the more you have, and with something like Sliver Queen generating tokens, they would get really massive. As far as the non-legendaries, you got stuff like Homing Sliver, which each sliver in play, it gives it Sliver Cycling, which I think is a pretty funny keyword. Sliver Cycling 3, so you can pay 3 and discard the card to search for a sliver card and reveal it, put it in your hand. That's a pretty powerful cycling effect. Most cycling is just discard it and draw, but that one's specific to slivers. That one's 2 a red, and it's a 2/2. So that's pretty good. Got Heart Sliver, 1 a red and a 1/1 for giving everything haste. All the slivers have haste. You've got one for Firewake Sliver that gives them all haste and pay 1, sack it to give another sliver +2/+2 until end of turn. That's pretty good. And the last one I wanted to talk about is Reflex Sliver, which is 3 and a green. It's a 2/2 and it gives all slivers haste. So there's a lot of cool slivers that could go in the deck, and it would be... I don't know if it's possible to make an EDH deck out of it. I'm sure it is. You would have to... I mean, there's a lot of slivers. When I was doing research, I noticed there's way more than I thought. But...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you'd have to buff it with, like, enchantments and stuff, but that wouldn't be bad. Maybe one day I'll build one of those. It's just a lot of sliver cards out there. It's a fun tribal build. What are you guys' opinions on slivers, and what are your stories, if you have any, about encounters with decks like that?
Steven had a sliver deck.
I did. There's actually a few decent cards that aren't slivers that work with slivers. One of my favorites, especially to go along with Sliver Overlord, I'm sure everybody remembers, Meeboy Changeling.
Yeah.
The Changelings usually work pretty well too, since they count as slivers. This one was a 1/1 for 1 colorless and a blue, creature type Changeling. He even came with the premium sliver set that came out a while back. You can tap him and make target creature lose all creature types if you want, but his big ability is you can tap him and target creature gains all creature types, which means that you can turn something into a sliver across the field from you, and then you can steal it with Sliver Overlord.
Nice. Good combo. Yeah, I saw him when I was doing research, and there was a couple others that were cards that have all creature types. Those are good to put in there. And I guess really for any tribal deck, those are pretty generic cards that could go in.
Also, yeah, I wish I could remember the card name off the top of my head. Everybody listen to me while I bant a little bit.
Bant?
Bant. I said vamp.
He said vape.
Nice.
Vape Nation?
Vape Nation.
Phyrexian Altar. If you want to use Sliver Queen, on the other hand, she works well with Phyrexian Altar, where you sack. It's a 3 mana artifact that just sits out there. You can sack a creature and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Include this with anything that would lower her activated ability, like Training Grounds or some such. Blah, 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 blah. And you've got an infinite little loop of slivers. So if you have the sliver out to where they lose life, then you're good to go. Ashnod's Altar lets you sack 1 for 2 colorless. So you lose the color ability, but you get twice the colorless mana, which is what you need with her ability. You can do it even better then. You can do it faster. Faster, better, harder, stronger.
Slivers.
Market slivers. There you go.
Yeah.
My experience with slivers is that they were nasty and they did really good, but it seemed to draw hate. I guess because people know. I get people assume they're gonna get really nasty. Would that kind of happened every time you played that sliver deck, wasn't it, Steven?
That's true, and I will build off of that to say it never performed up to the level of hate that it got.
Yeah.
Like, people looked at it like I was just running all land destruction, but most of the time it just did like some silly stuff and then fizzled. It was nasty sometimes, but it wasn't nearly as consistent as I wanted it to be. And so that might be part of it from like my poor deck building ability. It was fun deck. It was neat. I love the interaction because I love tribal. I'm a dork like that, and everything just sort of fed into itself. But it was never one of those like, oh my god, he's got that deck, there's no way we can win decks. It was just one of those like fun for me sort of decks.
Even though it was kind of treated like that. I definitely get that. There's a stigma out there, and you're going to notice it if you try to run a sliver deck. But honestly, I would just run it casually and be good with it.
Yeah, I think the main problem is like, and I always assumed that if I let you have like more than 2 slivers on the board, I was just going to lose for some reason. And it's like I killed your creatures constantly. Yeah, it's not how it works at all, but like I guess with slivers, I just have that thought in the back of my head, like, oh no, if he gets more than, if he gets all these slivers, I'm going to not be able to do anything. But
yeah.
That's my take on my favorite tribal theme. Hunter, what would you say you like the most when building tribal?
I'd usually go, there's usually 2 different ways people build tribal. Some people go 100% tribal and include like all the cards, no matter how bad they are, that mention that specific tribe. and then others go kind of competitive tribal. And like for instance, what I always do with elves, I include all the good elf cards. There's some cards that will go really well in elves. Pause. Feeding the cats. The cat tribe, guys. Little cat tribe in my house.
Meow, meow, meow.
We'll be back after this commercial break for Meow Mix. I'm back.
All right, do it.
Okay, so I tend to go more competitive tribal, whereas I'll use, obviously, like the elves. Elves are my favorite. I use a lot of elves, and it's usually nothing but elves, with a few splashed in there. So, for instance, I don't use the cards like, there are some cards that say target elf gets +X, where X is the number of elves you control. I don't use all of those. I might use one sometimes, but usually go more competitive. Try to win with the tribe. Some people don't like tribal builds because they don't think they're very powerful. Honestly, I think tribal builds can be the most powerful because every time I play elves,
I've seen your elf tribal decks before. They can they can be very
Hunter's
strong.
elf tribal deck is nasty.
One thing I love about tribal builds is when people play things like what's that card that lets you search someone else's library for a creature?
There's a lot.
Well, any of those cards, bribery, anything like bribery, people tend to skip over me because an Azuri or Elvish Visionary isn't going to help someone not playing elves for the most part.
True.
So making them think that you have nothing but tribal synergy in your deck sort of dissuades them from trying to steal your stuff.
Exactly, and I've had that happen a lot because it just doesn't help them. A 1/1 elf isn't going to do much for them, whereas it does a whole lot for me.
That's true, or something that's weak without other elves present.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, I feel like tribal can be kind of a deterrent, of a threat deterrent, and then they come back and they get you. So it's kind of takeover proof. And if someone's not familiar with playing a specific tribe and they go up against it, they don't expect what they can do at all.
Yeah.
People that don't know how to play elves just don't worry about it the first few times they play it because it's unfamiliar to them,
That's what I did.
Yeah. Yes.
I got wrecked.
So I think tribal builds can be very powerful. Even full tribal. So I'd just like to talk about my favorite cards to use in elves. And I feel like no elf deck is complete without these.
Sure.
Number one, first and foremost, I would say is Priest in Titania and Elvish Archdruid.
Oh yeah.
Elvish Archdruid is 1 and 2 green. For 2/2, other elves you control get +1/+1. You can tap it to add a green to your mana pool for each elf you control. And Priest of Titania is 1 and a green for a 1/1, and you tap it to add a green to your mana pool for each elf you control. Mana is the number one most important part of an elf deck. Because you don't really run many lands, because most elves can produce a whole lot of mana.
It's like ramp tribal.
Yeah, basically, yes. And so those two, I'd say, are the most important pieces of any elf deck. And then obviously you have Llanowar Elf, Elvish Mystic, Arbor Elf, Findhorn Elves, Lys Alana Huntmaster. It's 2 and 2 green for a 3/3. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may put a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token onto the battlefield. It just, with any mana elf, it's crazy. It makes crazy mana. Every time you play another elf, you get more mana to play more elves. I think that one's great. The list goes on for those. One elf that I don't care for, that I see in a lot of lists, is Immaculate Magistrate. It's 3 and a green for a 2/2, and you tap it to put a 1/1 counter on target creature for each elf you control. And yes, it's not bad, but I've never found myself wanting to use it.
Not bad. Throw that boy out on the field with a Taijuru Warcaller.
Well, yeah, he's fantastic, but I've never found myself using it or winning with it.
I feel.
Then all the times I've been playing elves, I end up taking him out because of that. Because he kind of costs a bit, and I have to wait a whole turn for him to be able to do anything. And usually, I can win with less. I can play more with 4 mana that enables me to win that turn than him usually. Very important. And then ways to untap those elves. I really like Wirewood Lodge, the land. You tap a green in the land to untap target elf. Wirewood Symbiote, 1 green. It's a non-elf, but it's 1 green. Wirewood Symbiote is a 1/1 insect, and you return an elf you control to its owner's hand. Untap target creature. Activate this ability only once per turn. Great card for untapping elves. And then Fauna Shaman is fantastic. The price is kind of going up, but it's kind of like a budget survival of the fittest that you can only do once. 1 and a green for a 2/2. Now 1 green and tap it to discard a creature card. Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, and put it into your hands and shuffle your library. Carrion Ranger, 1 green, 1/1. Return a forest you control to its owner's hand. Untap target creature. Use this ability only once each turn. Another great untapper.
Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Might be.
I'm sorry.
It's an elf. Regal Force, great non-elf creature for the deck. 4 and 3 green for a 5/5. And when it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each green creature you control. Refilling your hand is very important with elves because you will play out your hand very quickly. One guy, I haven't gotten to play with him yet, but I've seen videos of him in play, and he seems crazy. Rickshar Pima Renegade, 2 and a green for a 2/2. He's a legendary elf. Whenever he enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Each creature you control, the counter on it has tap, add green to your mana pool. Every time I've seen him in play and online, he's nasty.
Disgusting.
We're going to go back to like untap things. Did you have Scrib Ranger on that list?
Did not say Scrib Ranger. I forgot about Scrib Ranger. That's a 1 and a green for a 1/2 flyer?
1/1.
1/1 flyer. Yeah, let's see. You go ahead and read that one.
Straight from his head, ladies and gentlemen.
It was not straight from my head. I'll go ahead and own up to that.
I was talking about Hunter's.
From Hunter? Yeah, go for it. Heck yeah.
I used Scrib Ranger a lot in Yissen.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yissen. Yeah. It has flash, flying, protection from blue, and the same as the Quirion Ranger. Return a forest to your hand, untap a creature, play it only once a turn.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great card. But I guess what I really like the most about elves and tribal in general is that it's so flavorful, and I've always really liked elves in fantasy lore. And so getting to play them like with magic and kind of be an elf, since Commander, one of my favorite things about Commander is you're like you kind of are your commander leading an army. It's really fun. Love doing that with elves. Yes, an army of
like
elves.
Lord of the Rings would have done.
I have 3 favorite elf commanders. Number 1 is Azuri, Renegade Leader. 1 and 2 green for a 2/2 legendary elf warrior. You can tap a green and regenerate another target elf, or you can tap 2 and 3 green, activated ability. Elf creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. The overrun effect is how you win with elves. And having Azuri with that trample, the overrun effect in your command zone at all times, he's great elf leader. It's an overrun that won't go away. That's what I love about Azuri.
Yep.
I'd say my second favorite that I'm building with right now, I actually haven't built a dedicated elf deck with this guy yet, but I have built decks with him, is Risk the Redeemed. He is a hybrid white-green for a 1/1, and he reads tap 2 and a hybrid white-green and him, and put a 1/1 green and white elf warrior creature token into play. Tap 4 and 2 hybrid white greens and him. For each creature token you control, put a token into play that's a copy of that creature. He's crazy good commander, especially obviously for token builds, but I'm building elves with him right now.
That was the commander that I was thinking of when you were talking. Yeah. When I was talking about going up against your elf decks, when you had that commander deck with him, that was pretty insane. You could get a lot of elves out very quickly, and it was just overwhelming.
Oh yeah, and that wasn't even a dedicated elf deck. I think dedicating him to elves instead of tokens in general. I think it's going to be super powerful, and I'm really excited to finish that build. And then my last favorite commander, who I'm also in the middle of building right now, is Nath of the Gilt Leaf. He is 3.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's nasty.
He's kind of oppressive. He can be built very oppressively, but he is a 3, a black and a green for a 4/4, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you may have target opponent discard a card at random. Whenever an opponent discards a card, you may create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. He gets nasty. Steven, I remember you had a Nath deck one time.
Oh, yeah, you gotta have that black card in it.
Yeah, he was not fun to play against.
What was that other card that goes with Nath? Sadistic Hypnotist, yeah.
Yeah. 3 and 2 black. Sacrifice a creature. Target player discards 2 cards. Play this only as a sorcery.
That's right.
Yep,
So,
okay, there we go.
if you sack a creature and they discard 2, with Nath out, you get 2 tokens. And you can sack one of those to get 2 more tokens. And they lose a card. So you can basically just wipe everybody of cards.
Crazy.
Also, another one that I found that I didn't get to use very often was the Black Myojin from Kamigawa.
Yes.
I want to say whenever you remove his divinity counter, everybody discards.
Yep. Whole board discards their hands.
Yeah.
That creature tends to cause some saltiness. I was playing on MTGO one time, and I was in a 4-player game, and this dude played that Myojin, and one guy just freaked out and was like, no, have him booted. Everyone vote him booted. And I was like, no, I'm not voting him booted. You're ridiculous.
He played something interesting. Why do you want to boot him?
I know. I was like, no, why are you here?
Get out. This is magic.
But yeah, that's my favorite. That's what I have to say about building tribal. I'd say I build elves the best. I've been trying to build a good zombie deck for a long time and just haven't been successful at it. I tried to build a merfolk deck. Sig River Cutthroat.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't do too good with him.
The blue-white one, I find, does better. Just because white gives you better like tribal stuff with merfolk.
Yeah, than the blue-black one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't do too well with that build. I like elves the most. I do the best with the green. I feel green and black. I feel I do the best with, and really like elves. So that's my take on tribal builds. Steven, what do you have to say about tribal? What's your favorite tribe to build with?
My favorite tribe is Mistform Ultimus because it is every tribe.
That is interesting.
Right. He's basically just a blank legend with changeling.
Anti-tribe.
He says, yeah, there you go. He's legendary creature illusion, 3/3 for 3 colorless and a blue. His text just reads, he is every creature type. So he works with anything that is mono blue that says pump or give it evasion. There's some pretty good ones in slivers that'll either give him flying or can't be blocked. I want to say shifting sliver says all slivers can't be blocked except by slivers. And with just one of those down, unless you're staring across the table at a dedicated sliver deck, you're probably not going to have another sliver out there. For this instance, you could even run things like swords, just give him like a buff through that way. That's not necessarily tribal. It's hard to get him to swing for, I guess, what would be called like the killing blow without taking into consideration commander damage. Like, it's hard to get him to swing for 40, but if you only have to get him to swing for commander damage, it's a little bit easier. But yeah, you can throw in like all those nasty fairies and merfolk and cephalids.
Man,
just all that cool stuff.
I remember fairies, blue-black fairies being top of the game a while back.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, back when they were in standard.
Yeah.
I wanted to add one thing. Steven, you mentioned hard to get him to swing for 40, but if you use commander damage, it's pretty easy. Mm-hmm. I would just like to say to everyone out there, the reason we say that is because most of the time, in like every play group I've ever been in, we kind of look past commander damage and don't even keep up with it. and just play to 40 because we like longer games anyway. And I don't know, we just overlooked commander damage. So some of you out there might think that's crazy, but just wanted to clarify why he mentioned that the way he did.
Yeah, we're not a fan of commander damage usually.
It's like an extra goal.
Yeah, some decks are just kind of. I feel like some games can be kind of bland with commander damage because it's so much easier to get one creature to swing for 21 than it is 40. And some commanders are just scream commander damage. I'd like to take a second to talk to everyone about good tribal cards in general. In case you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I want to try a tribal build. What cards are out there?
Bad tribal decks.
Some really good tribal cards that go in any tribal deck you build, regardless of the tribe. Coat of Arms is one. It's a 5-cost artifact, colorless artifact. Each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least one creature type with it. It gets crazy if more than one person is playing the same tribe. I feel like it does the most good in Elves and Goblins, because Elves and Goblins tend to be more buff a lot of creatures.
That or like soldiers, something just generic.
And then like playing off of that type of ability, Door of Destinies as a 4-cost colorless artifact. As Door of Destinies enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, put a charge counter on Door of Destinies. Creatures you control with the chosen type get +1/+1 for each charge counter on Door of Destinies. It's not the same as Coat of Arms, but it buffs.
It's pretty good. I've got him in the spider deck. I'm going to do a deck tech on later.
Let's see. Obelisk of Erd is a 6-cost artifact with Convoke. As Obelisk of Erd enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control the chosen type get +2/+2. Not quite as good as Door of Destinies and Coat of Arms, but it's not bad.
It's pretty good, and Convoke is a strong mechanic in tribal decks because you're going to have a lot of creatures.
Yeah. Urza's Incubator isn't bad. It's a 3-cost colorless artifact. As Urza's Incubator enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creature spells of the chosen type cost 2 less to cast. I've actually never played with this card, but I would really like to. With I feel like it wouldn't quite benefit elves as much as other tribes. Elves or goblins, just because elves and goblins, most of your like bread and butter elves and goblins cost 1 of their color anyway. But with zombies especially, I can see this being huge for zombies because there's not as many 1 black zombies out there. They're usually, I'd say their average is probably about 3 or 4 mana. And bringing that down by 2 colorless mana would be huge.
It's true. Back when I toyed around with a red-white giant tribal, this saw some pretty heavy use.
Oh yeah, I bet. All the giants are super expensive. This would help that out a lot.
Yeah, wasn't a great deck, but that card definitely saw some play in it.
One cool tribal card can be used with combos and stuff, but Faces of the Past, which is 2 and a blue enchantment. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, tap or untap all creatures that share a creature type with it. It does some infinite combo with Grimgrin that I don't remember right now, but it's there.
It's pretty versatile.
Mana Echoes, 2 and 2 red enchantment. Whenever a creature comes into play, you may add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool for each creature you control that shares a creature type with it. Excellent with goblins. Also excellent with Prosh, because he makes so many kobolds. So when you play Prosh, you get a lot of colorless mana off of kobolds.
Yeah.
How many colorless mana do you get?
You add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool for each creature you control that shares a creature type with it.
Oh wow!
Whenever 1 creature comes into play, so when 6 come into play, that's a lot of math. I don't know if I'm overthinking it, and it's actually just 6, but I'm pretty sure it's more than just 6.
You think it's 36?
I think so.
Oh, what's the card?
Because each one comes in at the same time.
Okay.
I think it's going to be 36. So yeah, Mana Echoes is crazy with Prosh, but really good in any tribal, in a goblins would be really good. Any red tribe. I can't think of any red tribes besides goblins. I don't think there's enough kobolds out there to make a kobold deck.
Now, goblins is probably one of the biggest red tribes. I've got a goblin deck. It's a fun deck. Goblins are cool. That's probably my second favorite tribal thing. There's a lot of really cool goblins out there, but for red, that's about it.
Here's an interesting card. Xenographed. 4 and a blue enchantment. As Xenographed enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Each creature you control is the chosen type in addition to its other types. So it makes whatever deck you're running a tribal deck.
Yeah, that would work well for the anti-tribal build, kind of like what Steven was talking about. A card I wanted to mention in that same vein is Adaptive Automaton. It's 3 2/2 artifact creature construct. And as it enters, you choose a creature type, and it is the chosen type in addition to its other types. And other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. So there's some really cool anti-tribal cards out there for sure.
I want to throw one onto the list before we move on to the antis.
Throw it on.
I want to throw Brass Herald on there. He's a 6 mana 2/2 artifact creature golem. As he enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. When he comes into play, reveal the top 4 cards of your library and put all the creature cards of the chosen type revealed this way into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And then he also has a Lord effect for that creature type. So this is pretty cool because a lot of times whenever you're limiting yourself just to creature types, you're probably limiting yourself on mana colors too.
Yeah.
Especially in like elves and stuff. I know Sylvan Ranger would help you draw stuff, but having a little extra draw is always helpful. And like even in goblins and stuff.
Definitely. I've always had him in the maybe list or on the pile to be included.
That's fair. He is a solid maybe card.
Yeah, he's a very solid maybe card. Have you found yourself using him?
Not really. But he's there.
I'll have to just do it one day just to see how he works out.
Yeah.
One card that's almost a must in a tribal deck. Well, it's a must in a tribal deck if you play in a meta that is counter heavy, is Cavern of Souls. People don't really think of it as a tribal card and use it more for their commander in general, but Cavern of Souls is a land, and as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You can tap it to add a colorless to your mana pool, or you can tap it and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, and that spell can't be countered.
Oh yeah, Cavern of Souls, absolutely.
It's unfortunately pretty pricey these days, $45 right now, but if you have it, very good for tribal builds.
Or for selling.
Nobody said real estate was cheap.
Here's a very interesting card I found looking for cards to mention in this segment of this episode, actually. It is 3, a green, and a blue for an instant. It says, choose a card type, then reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all cards of the chosen type revealed this way into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. I feel like for that mana cost, I don't know if I would play it, but it definitely seems interesting because it's kind of like Brass Herald. You can get a lot of a chosen card. You can pick creature and get all the, tribal decks are usually creature heavy and get all the creatures you need in your hand, but
it is a pretty high cost.
I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting card. Oh, here's another interesting one. Tribal Unity. X, 2 and a green, instant. Creatures of the type of your choice get +X/+X until the end of turn.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. Because it's green.
Really? There you go.
That's about it.
On my face.
It's a really cool... I like X-cost cards. They're really neat. Very versatile.
Yeah. One card I keep wanting to try also is a Stoneforge Metalwork. Stoneforge Masterwork. It's a 1-cost artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it and has equipped too. It's really cheap.
That bad boy's in the cat deck.
Ah, yeah. That's awesome. Oh, that's perfect card for the cat deck.
White equipment.
Heck yeah.
Hunter, what's your favorite animal?
Not spiders.
Too bad we're talking about them. Deck Tech.
Please don't let that be true.
It's true.
Oh,
Spider Tribal is stronger than ever because I slapped together this deck and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I remember when you made this.
Very quickly because I was like, I got a bunch of spider cards. This would be a cool commander deck.
Yeah, and I think it was like right after I had like had a bad encounter with spiders or something. So it was like the peak of my spider phobia, arachnophobia, and you were like, I'm gonna make a spider deck.
It might have been
like,
just
you,
to
Jacob.
spite you. I'm not sure.
I think it really was.
You know what?
Because I
Hunter would
remember when
love
you made it,
spiders.
like everyone was like, "Oh, Hunter doesn't like spiders," and then Jacob just shows up with a spider deck, and I was like, "Great."
Great.
Yeah. It was probably just to spite you, and somehow it worked out. And recently, I kind of revamped it a little bit, put in some extra cards, and it worked pretty well. It's super fast, super tribal, super spidery.
Super spidery.
So I noticed out there's some deck types that you will see. Spider EDH, there's not a lot of them, but you'll see either more functional focused or flavor focused, and I kind of went for a combination of the two. So the commander is actually Doran Siege Tower, because he is... I left my Doran at your house, didn't I, Hunter?
Yeah, I think you left the shiny one at my house.
Hey, Jacob, can we get an altar art of that and just call it Doran infested with spiders?
That's horrifying. If you want to make it, you can.
Heck
I
yeah.
couldn't do that. You can.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
I'm okay with that. I'll run it as my commander. So Doran works really well with spiders because he says each creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. He's a 0/5 for black, green, white.
Spiders
really
usually
good
got big old booties.
Yeah, they got the big toughness. They're big and strong. And
also, I think Doran kind of fits the tribal theme a little bit because spiders live in trees.
Yep. As Steven said, Doran infested with spiders makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to find a tree that doesn't have a spider in it.
Yep.
If not a whole horde of spiders. So I think he works flavor-wise just as well as that one spider commander there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For flavor. I think he works just as well for flavor.
And speaking of that one spider commander, that's you're talking about Ishkana Graph Widow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually in here. It's a 4 and a green for a 3/5 with reach and delirium. When it enters the battlefield, if there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, put 3 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach onto the battlefield. So it just generates some token guys. You can also pay 6 and a black to have a target opponent lose 1 life for each spider you control. So she's really spider token based, but I have more creatures than token generating, so Doran definitely works better for my deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Doran's a cool commander in general, and I thought it was very creative that you made a spider deck with him. That when you first brought it over, as much as I hate spiders, I thought it was a really cool direction to take with Doran.
Definitely,
because all the spiders have big toughness.
Yep, he's a strong point for the deck for sure. Pretty much have to get him out as soon as possible, and he's really low cost, so even if he dies quickly, you can bring him back out with relative ease.
Yeah, I also like how he adds white to the deck, whereas the other one is just green black, because I think white is what helps the deck be the mix of tribal and serious fun at the same time, because it's by no means a competitive deck, but it works and it's fun to play, and I think white brings that to the table. It makes it possible over just black and green tribal spiders.
Plus, with stuff like white, you can throw in things like castle, which would just give all of your creatures basically +2/+2 effectively.
Yeah, that's true. I've got a few enchantments that give boosts to defense, like as far as white goes, I got Eland Umbra. It's a 1 and a white for an enchantment. Enchant creature gets +0/+4 and it's totem armor, so stuff like that's pretty good to put in there. But I think the main focus I have for white spells in here is like field wipe. So like Solar Tide, 4 and 2 white for destroy all creatures with power 2 or less, or destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. And you choose one of those, or entwine it by sacrificing 2 lands to choose both.
Oh, that's great. I would just like straight up constantly use the second one.
Yeah.
Because like you're always. Do any of the spiders Well, some of them have 3, but none of them are really big power.
Yeah, some of them have 3. Most of them are under 3. The spider type creatures in here, I think Ishkana is the only one that's 3 exactly. So yeah, that's a good one for that ability. And if you just want to really wipe everything and start over, you can pick both. But then I also have Wave of Reckoning, which is 4 and a white. It's a sorcery, and each creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. So that takes advantage of the whole higher toughness thing, because your creatures are probably not going to take themselves out. Like, none of my creatures have power higher than its toughness, so they'll all survive that.
Yeah, and that's a power that you kind of only get in just being tribal and flavorful, because in a deck that's like, oh, well, I'm quote-unquote spider tribal, you're going to have a lot of other creatures also, just kind of majority spiders, but with a straight tribal, like I just have spiders, that card really helps, benefits you there.
Yeah.
With spiders, anyway.
So,
Spiders.
with that and, like, Door of Destinies, of course, it's 4 cost artifact. As it enters battlefield, choose a creature type, spider, obviously in this case. You put a charge counter on it for whenever you cast a spell of that type, and your creatures get +1/+1 for however many counters are on it. So that's pretty good. That's a really strong tribal card I think we talked about last segment. So with all of that tribal stuff going on, there are some pretty strong spiders that work together pretty well, especially with Doran's ability. So going back to what you mentioned, doing enchantments that boost toughness but not necessarily power, there's a lot of low-cost enchantments that do that, and artifacts and spells, because you're usually looking for power, but of course in the case of Doran it doesn't matter. So I've got things like a quarter shield, that's 0 cost, and it gives you +0/+3 and vigilance for an equip cost of 3, which is really strong for this deck because they then have vigilance for 3 total mana, but that's very low. A lot of the cards in here are actually pretty low costs. I've also got Slagworm Armor. It's 1 cost equipment, equip 3, and it gives it +0/+6, which is insane.
Heck
for
yeah.
4 total mana. And Tower Defense, which is more of a cover effect. So you've got 1 and a green for an instant that can give all the creatures you control +0/+5 in reach, which is very strong, because you get the huge +5 to basically their power, and they all get reach, even though they mostly all have reach. It's good flying defense. This deck works best against a flying deck, as you could probably tell from the tribal theme. But I have a few other things in here that can kind of help against flying, besides the fact that all the creatures have reach. We've got Dense Canopy, which is a 1 and a green enchantment. Creatures with flying can't block creatures without flying. So if you're playing against a deck that has all flying creatures, you're basically going to get free damage in there to the face. So that's a good one.
One card that, I don't know if you have it in there or not, but one card that I always loved, I had a Doran deck that wasn't spiders, it was just Doran, but my favorite pump for him was Nimbus Wings. It's 1 and a white for an aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+2 and has flying. I found myself playing it so much, and I got so much benefit from it because it made Doran swing for 7 and over people's heads at that. So I found I got so much use out of that.
Plus really early game too.
Oh yeah, so early. Like Doran, you can play on turn 2 and EDH, and then turn 3 put on Nimbus Wings, and it's a turn 3 7 swing. You're immediately the target, but it's really nice to have.
Everybody at the table just turns your way and goes, "Oh, I see."
It could definitely use some more cards like that, because like I said, it's very strong against flying decks, a lot less strong against decks with no flyers, because you end up with a lot of cards in hand that don't do much.
Get it. Spiders beat birds.
But I also have Assault Formation, which is kind of more general purpose. It's a 1 and a green enchantment. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So you can get the Doran effect if Doran's not out, or you don't have a way to bring him out or something.
Sure. What set is that from?
That is from... Don't ask me these questions.
Cool.
That is from the cons, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, that's cool.
And it has a 1 green to give target creature with Defender the ability to attack as though it didn't have Defender. So for some of my walls in here, I can have them attack. And I'll show the creature off that I have that specifically for. But then you can pay 2 and a green to give creatures +0/+1 until end of turn. So another good toughness bump. So for the Defender thing, Tree of Perdition. So that's a Defender you want attacking because Tree of Perdition is a 3 and black plant creature. He's Defender, and you can tap him to exchange target opponent's life total with Tree of Perdition's toughness. He is a 0/13.
That would be really fun to do if he had vigilance.
Yeah, so if you get Assault Formation out there and him, you can turn him into an effective 13/13 and swing in for a lot of damage.
Good lord.
I know a much bigger 13/13.
Yeah, you're switching his toughness with theirs. You're not just giving them his toughness.
You are right. That's why.
You trade it.
It's even better than I thought.
If he has vigilance, you should put some vigilance stuff in there because, if he has vigilance, he swings, doesn't tap, and then whoever you swing at, if they don't have a blocker, you tap him and exchange life total for toughness and win.
Yeah,
that's
that would
cool.
be really good.
Good lord.
There is that one artifact I mentioned earlier, a quarter shield, which gives it vigilance. But a little bit more vigilance would probably be a good idea.
Well, actually, I like that it has that one because I recently made a deck, and just for the sake of fun, which this deck is fun, it's kind of fun to have a combo that is not really a broken combo, but it's like, I have this ability and this card, I can take advantage of it in this way. So it's not like it's a combo deck, but it just has several really fun
interaction.
Right.
Like that's a really neat interaction. Like I wouldn't be sad at all if I lost to that because that's just cool.
It is a cool interaction.
It's not it's not like a splinter twin and a Pestermite. It's where that's just like, okay, everyone's done that. Okay, you won. Whatever. It's just a really cool interaction. It's a casual, fun interaction. I like how it's just those 2 cards and it's not the win condition of the deck.
Yeah, it's just something that might happen every couple of games.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff in here like that. I've got the Arachnus brothers, whatever you want to call it. So the cards Arachnus Spinner and Arachnus Web work together because with Arachnus Spinner, the spider creature, it's a 5 and a green. It's a 5/7 with reach, and you can tap an untapped spider you control to search your graveyard and or library for a card named Arachnus Web and put it onto the battlefield attached to target creature. Arachnus Web is a 2 and green enchantment aura that enchants a creature that the enchanted creature can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. At the beginning of the end step, if enchanted creature's power is 4 or greater, destroy Arachnus Web. So you can kind of keep getting it out of there with Arachnus Spinner and locking down some creatures to get in some extra damage.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I always thought that was a really cool card duo whenever it came out. Yeah. I just haven't had a use for it in EDH, but it's really cool for a spider deck because it adds so much flavor and it works pretty well. Like tribal decks like this that aren't like competitive tribal builds that are quote unquote tribal, like full tribal builds, kind of need stuff like this because it's not powerful, say in a mono green deck, but it is whenever you're playing spiders. So it has its power and flavor boost, and it seems it's really cool.
Yeah,
competitive tribal decks. Casting shade at you, merfolks and fairies.
Fairies.
And goblins.
I like goblins.
I like them too, but red deck wins. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, speaking of flavor, I've got a couple other cards in here that are a little less functional than the Arachnus cards. But Magnetic Web and Mana Web for obvious reasons. So Magnetic Web is a 2-cost artifact. If any creature with any magnet counters on it attacks, all creatures with magnet counters on them the attacking player controls attack if able. If any creature with magnet counters on it attacks, all creatures with magnet counters on them that the defending player controls block if able. So basically, it causes a fighting situation where you can beef up a creature and have all the defending player's creatures block it and kill all of them. It's kind of worded weird because it's an older card, but you also pay 1 and tap it to put a magnet counter on target creature, obviously. So,
do they have to block that one creature, or do they just have to block
that creature if able? So yeah, they have to block the creature. So I could pull out like Tree of Perdition and swing in to take out most of the other player's creatures.
Good lord.
So it's not really, it doesn't really work with any of the other cards in here, but it's more of a flavor thing, and it's a cool ability that could be useful. Mana Web is a 3-cost artifact, and whenever any land target opponent controls is tapped for mana, tap all lands he or she controls that can produce any type of mana that land can produce. So you're potentially tapping out a lot of their lands and getting rid of a lot of potential mana for them. They're both just kind of like lockdown cards that have just fun abilities that could be useful, but they're mainly in there because they're the web cards that are pretty common in Spider tribal decks.
Yeah.
I think Mana Web's one of those cards that might be considered unfun to some people, but in a deck like this, it makes it kind of fun because the whole deck isn't built around locking down the board.
Right.
It's one lockdown card, like, oh crap, I'm gonna have to tap all my mana to do this one thing, and I wanted to save that for next phase maybe. So it's one of those unfun cards that's made fun through Tribal. And I think that's a cool thing. It's a cool thing that Tribal enables, is that it enables a bunch of unfun cards to be kind of fun because it's flavorful and it's the only instance of it in the deck.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. So going back to the cards I mentioned that wipe the field, if you ever are in a situation where you get the board wiped and you're playing this deck, I've got a few cards in here that can generate some spider tokens kind of on the spot just to recover from stuff like that. So spider spawning is 4 and a green sorcery. You put a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach onto the battlefield for each creature card in your graveyard. So that's almost an immediate recovery. They may not be as powerful as what you had out there, but it just gives you something that so you're not left wide open. It also has flashback for 6 and a black, so that's pretty good.
Definitely.
Yeah, I like that. Plus, those the mass token generators in late game can be like game enders.
Oh yeah, yeah. You could just use that normally and get a ton of stuff out.
Yeah. Late
game. Arachnogenesis is another one that's in a lot of the Spider Tribal decks out there. It's 2 and a green instant. You put X 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. So you prevent all combat damage from pretty much anything, because not a lot of people are going to be using spider creatures, and then you get the number of attacking creatures in 1/2 spider tokens. So
I love that card, and that's like an
really
auto-include in any green deck just about.
Yeah, it has to go in a lot of stuff.
Oh, it just
very
fits.
versatile.
Yeah, it's great.
Sudden Reclamation is a little bit different. It's a 3 and green instant to put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard, then return a creature card and a land card from your graveyard to your hand. So that just kind of pulls stuff back out of your graveyard in case you lost something super important that you need right now. And then Dead Bridge Chant. It's 4 black and a green, so it's probably one of the most expensive cards in the deck. It's an enchantment, and when it enters the battlefield, put the top 10 cards of your library into your graveyard. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose a card at random in your graveyard. If it's a creature card, put it onto the battlefield, otherwise put it into your hand. So that's super good. I've got quite a few creatures in here, so it works for pretty much any creature deck, but it also just kind of gives you some card advantage as well.
Yeah, that's a cool card I've always wanted to use. I've just never built a deck that it fits in. I really want to use it. It's such a cool card. It just does weird, fun things.
Yeah, it works really well because I noticed a lot of the cards that pull stuff out of your graveyard, if it's early game and you don't have anything in there, they're basically useless. But this kind of buffs your graveyard first so that you're always going to have stuff to pull out of it.
Yeah, that's really neat. Because it's not like it's a straight self-mill strategy card. Like it fits in decks that don't necessarily want to, like, where milling, like for instance, this spider deck isn't built around self-mill, but this card can work late game or early game even though it's not a self-mill deck.
So I guess I'll just be like, I agree. And
yeah,
then we'll go into the next one. I was just going to talk about 3 of the creatures. So Sentinel is a really interesting non-spider creature that I found that works perfectly in this deck. It is a 4-cost artifact creature, and when it comes into play, its toughness is equal to 1. You can pay 0 to change Sentinel's toughness to 1 plus the power of target creature blocking or blocked by Sentinel.
Interesting.
So it's a variable toughness, but it can always have 1 plus the toughness of whatever is blocking or being blocked by it. And when it's doing its damage equal to its toughness, that can assure a kill.
Huh. That's a really interesting card.
It works really well in this deck.
Yeah.
Hunter, did you die again?
No.
The Sentinel got him this
Just
time.
making sure. Gotta keep you alive. Watcher in the Web is a very strong spider card. It's 4 and a green for a 2/5 with reach, and it can block an additional 7 creatures each combat.
Good lord.
So if you pump him with some of those artifacts that I mentioned or enchantments, and he blocks as many creatures as he can, that could be a lot of death. It'd be better with like Death Touch, but it's still really good. Last one I was going to talk about, Sapling of Kalfinor. It's a 3 and 2 green or 2 black, or whatever combination.
Hybrid mana.
Yeah, there you go. There's words for it. It's a 2/5 legendary tree folk shaman. It's indestructible, and when it attacks, you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you gain life equal to that card's toughness and lose life equal to its power, then put it into your hand. Excuse me. So that's always going to net you some life, just because of the way the creatures are in this deck. So that was a definite add for me.
Yeah, he's a cool card in general. He makes a great general, and like his indestructibility is kind of, he kind of feel like he's kind of looked over, but the indestructible on him is really great. He gives you card advantage. You put cards in your hand, right?
What?
As long as it's a creature.
Doesn't he say you put the revealed card in your hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he gives you card advantage and maybe life, and he's indestructible, so he sticks around. And
Should
with
we think
the
about
5
hitting that
toughness. Oh yeah.
Yep. It's pretty good. So to just kind of sum up the rest of the deck, I've got some, spot instants and sorceries for dealing with creatures and enchantments, etc., artifacts, permanents, stuff like that. Just some destroy spells because it's black-green. You're going to get that. And some man lands. I don't know. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where they can turn into stuff. So, like Treetop Village and Forbidding Watchtower, which turns into a 1/5 white soldier. It's pretty good. Stirring Wildwood Swarm Yard, which isn't a man land, but it's pretty cool because you can tap it to regenerate target insect, rat, spider, or squirrel. And in my case, it would always be spider.
Got a couple of those in a squirrel deck. I love that card.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Very flavorful in many ways. And then I got a couple ramp cards in there. Mana ramp. But that's pretty much it. It's a really good deck. We'll definitely play it if we ever get a camera and do some live matches.
That would be fun.
Matches. But that's pretty much it for the deck tech. So we're going to move into the outro, where you get to hear about all our cool links and stuff. Because if you liked listening to it, this podcast that is, and you want to listen to more of this podcast, or other stuff that we make. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can check us out on Facebook at Undercity MTG, Twitter at UC Commander. We're on SoundCloud at Undercity-Commander, where we upload all our podcast episodes. And we've got Tapped Out, where we upload our deck lists. So you can see Hunter's deck that he did a deck tech on last episode. And this deck that I just talked about will also be up there. So go check all that out. Steven, you want to do some self-promotion? You can check out some of Steven's stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's me. Check out Steven's stuff. I advise you all to check out the Discount Bear YouTube channel. Same on Twitch and Twitter. It was a unique enough name that it was not taken in any of those places, so that's pretty cool. We do gaming badly, sometimes animations. If the quality's poor, I mean, like, you know what you're getting into. Don't write me a letter.
Yeah, so if I like his stuff, you should go check it out because I think you'll like it too. If you want to email us instead of him, you can check our email at undercitycommander@gmail.com. Send us all kinds of questions or complaints. Yell at us a little bit. Give us some content to talk about. Ask us questions. Whatever you really want to do, send it there, undercitycommander@gmail.com. And also remember to go check out like spoilers and stuff, because there's some cool stuff coming out soon. We got spoilers for Hour of Devastation. Catch us next time on episode 4, and check out episode 3 of Duels that just came out. Hopefully I'll be getting these guys on in episode 4 so that it's not just me.
Woo!
And you'll get a little bit more entertainment out of it.
I'm Hunter, and I don't have anything original to promote.
Hunter Street at hunterstreet.com
/gov
dot crap
org _ farmers meat. I don't know.
I have to pee.
That's
okay.
I don't know about that. All right, see you guys next time.
Catch us at the car shop. How about that?